that we all had a, I believe that we all had a wonderful weekend. Okay, so welcome to this new week. And we'll continue from where we stopped. In our last class, we talked about databases, database relationships, and object or relational mapping, ORM. So we did we did database, and we defined what it was. So that database comprises of tables, and these tables are where we actually store this data. Okay, and we learned how to create tables in Python, a bit sorry in Django. Okay, and we did that using the models.py file. And to create a table, we make use of classes, and these classes will inherit from the model class itself, and then we use that to create our own tables. Okay, so as usual, we'll 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 bring up our server, make sure that our server is up and running, and then we'll open our project folder in VS Code. Probably by now we are used to it. I used to this particular step. We do these steps each time we either want to continue in our work, so we navigate to our project folder, or we do it if you want to start just start a new project in a new working directory. So by now we are used to this particular step. So quickly I'll change directory to our document, and then in our KodeCamp project, that's what it is, KodeCamp project. And then it's in our my site, right? That's our project folder.
Boss, we're not seeing your screen, please.
Oh, sorry. So I believe you are seeing the screen now. Sorry, I have to navigate backward to the previous folder, my previous folder, and then this was our working directory, right? KodeCamp project. Now I have to activate my environment, env /script /activate .bat. The .bat is optional. You can take it off. It still works, right? So now we cd into my site. CD into my site. Okay, and then Python manage.py run server. Few seconds, and that should. Okay, so our server is up and running. All right, so another thing you want to do is to open our project folder in VS Code. I know that we already know how this is done. Also, so this was where we left off in our last class. All right. But this was where we stopped in our last class. Okay. So now we already know that each time we create a new table like this, a new model, okay, we run these two commands. Each time we make changes, we run these two commands. So any of those events that we do, we run these two commands. Creation of a new model and making changes to that model, we must run these two commands. Python manage.py make migrations, and then the second one is Python manage.py migrate to actually apply those migrations. All right. So and also there's another thing. Okay, I've noticed that I don't actually tell us to save our file. Okay, I don't actually say that. That's why most of us have errors. Like, let's say I write a piece of code and then I head over to my browser and refresh the browser. That effect and that changes take effect instantly. Okay, and so because of that, I barely say that we save our code. Okay, so like in normal sense, what we do is each time we, let's say, let me go to our view. So like each time we put in like a new line of code here. Let's say this line of code wasn't here. Okay, let's say that line of code wasn't there, and then we put it just now. Okay, we put it just now. Now each time we put a new line of code, we have to save this file. Okay, to apply those changes. That's Control A. We have to save this file. Okay, before going to our browser to see if this line of code is actually working or not. Okay, so I don't actually say that. I really say save your file and then head to your browser and see if that changes has taken effect. Okay. Why I don't say that is because my VS Code is in autosave. Okay, so it automatically saves my file. So each time I type in a new code, okay, it's saving it automatically. So each time I type in a new code, it's saving that code automatically. So I don't. That's why I don't remember to tell us to save our code. That's always most of us we having that problem of probably when we go to the to our browser and the changes is not being applied. Okay, but we've actually typed in a code, but that code is not taking effect. At times we do it correctly, but it's not working. So that's because our file is not saved, right? So what we can do is we can actually be saving this file manually. Like that means that each time we type a new code, let's say like print something, like we print something. Let's say we print like hello, right? And then now we have to actually control S on this file. Okay, we have to control S on this file, right? To save just that line of code. Control S, okay. In order for that line, if we were to execute this line of code there, okay. So now what we can do to save that stress of Control S, just in case at times we might even forget to do it, is you go to your if you're using VS Code, okay, for other browsers, I think you should. Sorry, for other text editors, okay, for those of us that are using maybe Sublime Text or Atom, by chance, okay. So I think there's a place in those editors that have the option of autosave, and you can toggle it on and off. Okay, you can toggle it on and off. So you just have to check in your own editor. Okay, then for us that are using VS Code, right? What you want to do is you want to go to here where you see files. Then you click on that files and then scroll down to where you see auto save. Okay, so mine is checked, meaning that it is on already, right? So you have to click on that. Click it just is not checked. You click on it, and when you click on it, it will toggle it on. Okay, if I click on it now, it will toggle it off again. Right? If I come back here now, it's off. It's not checked again. So you have to click on it and it will toggle it on. Okay, now it's on. It's checked. Right. So if you do that, that will save you the stress of Control S each time you type in a new line of code. Okay, that will automatically save your file as you type it save. As you type it save. Okay, so back to our models again. So um, So in our last class, we said that when we come back for this class, that we'll actually look at ORM in more detail, okay, in more detail. And we said that ORM is a way we interact with data in our databases. Okay, how do we actually interact with this data? Now we use what we call ORM, update relational mapping, to interact with this data. Okay, so all right, so we'll start the ORM, I think, afresh, right? For those of us that do understand what we did, because in our last class, we actually rushed to I just did a few things and we call it, and we ended that class, okay? So I'll just start all over again, okay? And then we see how we can interact with these data in here, right? So, but real quick, I'll show us this post here again, right? So we've created this table and then we've run this command, and then the third thing we do is we add it to the admin. We add it here, right? So how do we add it here? We use the admin.site.register, which means register the model called posts in our site using the admin model, and this admin model is imported from where? From the Django.contrib module. We imported this admin function and we use it to register our model. Okay, so I will show us that in in our admin page. Okay, so this is our admin page, and okay, so here it is, the post model. And in our last class, we added a few posts here, and I said that we should leave the way these things are numbering and the way it's showing post updates. Okay, so I'll show you how you can actually change this to show something that to actually show either our post title, okay, or something else, or whatever we want. You can actually change it. I'll show us that later. So far, we are having 3 posts here, okay? So now let's see how you can actually interact with this table here, okay? Because this is now a table, okay? So let's see how you can interact with it. That's not from this page, okay? From our code itself, how you can actually use our code to interact with this table here, okay? And that's we're going to do that with the ORM, okay? So I don't want to mess up this views dots. I don't want to mess this place up, so I'll just use I'll do this in our command prompt, so we get the idea of how this works. And then when we are done with that, I can now bring us back to these views here, and then we write our ORM here in these views. Okay, so for the purpose of illustration and better understanding, I will do that using our command prompt. Okay. I'll clear my screen for now, CLS, based on Windows. Then I will have to go into the Python interactive shell, okay? The Python interactive shell, okay? And we do that using, since this is a Django application, we use the Python manage.py. That manage.py has a lot of module in it. Python manage.py shell. Okay, now we are in the interactive shell. Interactive shell, we said that it, and because in our very first class, we said that interactive shell executes one line of code at a time. So if we say print this, like hello, it will just execute that line of code immediately. And we have hello there being printed immediately. All right, but that's not what we'll be doing. Okay, so now we want to interact with our model, this table here. Okay, so in order to interact with this model or this table, we have to actually, that table has to be, we have to access that table from our command prompt. Okay, so to access that, we have to import that table down here. Okay, so we can interact with that table properly. Okay, so now how do you actually import that model? Okay, so since that model is in the home app and in the model file, so we just import it this way. What we do is we say from home, okay, that's the home app, and then in the model file, okay, in the model file, right? I think it's model, not model. We can confirm that models, right? It is the models import. What are we importing? The post table, that table that we created. Okay, so that has been imported right there. Okay, that has been imported right there. Okay, and what we can do is so the first thing we want to do, here is we want to go ahead and see all the posts in that table. What do I mean? Let me see. I'm seeing that now. I want to go ahead and get all these posts. Okay, all these posts. How do I get all the data or all the records in the post table? Okay, how do we do that? If you want to get that, okay, what we can do is we can come here and we set the model name. Okay, because that's the model name post, right? This post here is this model name here, post, right? So you can say that model, okay, or that table. Now I want to get the object. Now, because all these sorry, not here, all these records here, okay, are known as objects. That's why we are having post objects, post object 4, post object 3, and post object 2, and post object 2. Okay, now all those records are known as objects. Okay, so we have to get them to say post dot objects, all right, object with s, object dot all. Okay, dot all. Now this will get all the post object, or should I say all the records in that in the post table. Okay, so if I execute this, now it returns this as a list, right? Right, because this is a square bracket here and this is a square bracket here, right? And we have comma here and we have comma there, right? Now, why we are now, what's the difference between this kind of table and this kind of list and the usual list that we know? Okay. Now, this kind of list is known as a query set, right? It's a query set because we are querying this database here. Okay. So it's more like a dictionary inside a list. Okay. So this a query set. Okay, and this query set is being returned in a list format. Okay, and a list format, it's for something to be in a list format, it must obey the list principle. And what is the list principle? A list is anything that has square bracket, that is within square brackets, okay, and is separated by comma. All right, so whatever is in this, all right, does not really matter as far as it obeys that principle. And once it obeys that principle, that becomes a list, right? So now, but this kind of list is known as a query set, right? A query set, because we are actually querying the database here, right? So now we should take note of that command there that says post.update.all, right? What that command there does, it gets all the records from where? From the table post, right? All all the records from the table post, right? So now another command another way we can want to interact with our database, right? Because this one way, say we want to get all the posts, this one way we can do that. We can interact with our database. Now another way is that probably we might want to create a post object. Okay, we might want to create a post object. Okay, and a user that does not have that does not have the admin rights cannot come in here and make use of this button that says add post. Okay, that user cannot do that. So how can a user submit a form and then we use ORM to create a new post or to interact with our data? Now, what we want to do, how we can actually achieve that, okay? No way, it's going to be very basic. We won't really dive into it, okay? It's going to be really basic. I think that at least the ones we are going to use more frequently, okay? More frequently, right? So now how we can do this is we can now say post, right? Because that's the table's name, right? Post. Now, in brackets, okay, are the fields in that table, like the columns in that table, right? So if you look at this as here, the columns here are post title, post content, and date posted, okay? And we don't have to put this date posted. That's because the auto now will automatically add this time. It will automatically add that time for us. If you look at the numbers, we now say the table name, right? This table name, right? And then in brackets, those fields. And then with the fields we have the post, the fields we have the post, I'm sorry, post title, okay? Post title, which will be a string, okay? Which will be a string. And the second one there is what we call is the second one there is a post content, okay? Post content. And post content, which will also be a string, okay? And the rest, and the other one is the date posted, which will add it automatically, so we don't have to specify that. All right. So now, within this quotation, we now put what we want to actually have, or what we actually need, okay, to be the post title. So we could say this one is let's say we can say let's look for a nice title. Let's say why web developers and so much. Okay, that's a nice title. Okay, so that is our title. Then the post content will be gibberish. Or just type a bunch of things that doesn't really make sense in it. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Okay. All right, so that will be our post content for, please forgive me for that. All right, so this will be our post content. Okay, so now we have to assign all this, right? We have to assign all this to a variable, okay? Because a variable needs to actually hold this so that we can actually save this to our database. So how do we assign? How do we do assignment statements? And I believe we did that, because if you're on this call, you know how to do that, meaning that you passed stage 5 because this was an assignment. Assignment statement was part of our task in stage 5. So I'll just assign this to, let's say, post 1. Okay, I'll assign this to post 1. So that's what that's an assignment statement. Okay, so now if I click enter, now nothing happens. Now nothing happens. Now have this post been created, or has it been saved to our database? Okay, now if you come here and we run this command again, post.update.all, to do what? To see all our post records. That's all the records there. So now previously we had only 3 records. Okay, meaning that we should have 4 by now. Okay, but if we run this, we are still having 3 there, right? That's because that post has not yet been saved. Okay, now this post instance has only been assigned to where? To the post.1, meaning that if I come here and say post 1, okay, and then do this, I have a post object, right, that has none, meaning that object has not yet been saved. Okay, it's just there. So I can go ahead and say post 1 dot post title. Okay, post title being a column, right, a column in that field, and we gave it why web developer earns so much. Okay, if I say post title, now it says that, okay, sorry, we have spelling this wrongly. All right, post title. Now we have this type that says web developer, why web developer earns so much. And if I go ahead and say post content, okay, which post content being the field, right, in that table, and we have this gibberish that we had there, and but then this data has not been saved to our database, right? This data only exists in this variable post 1. Okay, that data only exists in this variable post 1. So now how do I actually save this to the database? We now say post 1 dot, we now use the save method, right? Dot save, and this is a method. So you have to initiate this method, and to initiate a method we use the open and close bracket. Okay, so now if I click enter, nothing happens. But if I go ahead and run this command that says post.update.all, we now have the fourth content, and which is this one here, right? So now this has now saved that new post to our database, right? And this one now retrieve the title, and this one now retrieve the content. So up until now, up until this line of code, right, that post was never being saved. Okay, that post only existed in where? In this variable here that we assign to this post instantiation here. Okay, so that right from here, from this point, it existed in our post 1 variable, not in our database. So it's now here that we now save it to our database. That's how we are having the feed objects here, which was not here at that time. So that this feed object now is now our new post that we've now saved to the database. All right. So now what we can do another way we can actually interact with our user, with our table is, let's say that you want to filter this post by certain attributes. Okay, because this post is the attribute of this post. When I mean attributes, I'm simply referring to columns. All right, so let's say that I want to filter this row, these records here, okay, by a particular column. Okay, now what I mean that I want to filter this whole post here, right, with a column that says with a column that has a post title of post object 1. Okay, now if it's there, we will now be able to filter it. If it's not there, we will not be able to filter it. This will throw us an error. Okay, so let's say that now to do this, we need to bring the post again, that post model. Okay, we need that post model, because in every interaction with the database, we need to specify which model are we interacting with. Okay, which model do we want to interact with? So now now I have to specify that I want to interact with the post model or with the post table. Okay, so now to filter, I'll now have to say post dot object, right? Remember, it's always object because all those things, all those records are known as objects in Django. Okay, so post dot object dot filter, right? Dot filter. That's a command dot filter. Now in here, text the argument, right? The argument of now is the field. Which field do you want to filter with? So now currently our post has two fields, which is the post title and the post content, right? So now what we can do now, we can now say that, okay, I want to filter the post title, okay, the post title. Sorry, it's post title, not title. Post title, okay, and want to filter a post title that has what? That has a title of post one. Okay, now if it's there, this should grab that. This should grab that that this should return a list. Okay, a list of all the records. Okay, of all the records that has that post that has a title post one. Okay, that had the title post one. Now if I click enter, it returns an empty query set, meaning that there is no post that has that title. Okay, there's no post that has that title. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to create. Okay, let's go ahead and filter with the one that has this. So for sure, we know that we have a post that has this title, why web developer earns so much. Okay, so we go ahead and filter with that. Let's see if that works. Okay, so say why web, okay, why web developers, why web developers and so much. Okay, so if I click it's returning an empty query set. Let's return an empty query set. So let's see what's happening here. All right, so I'll go ahead and highlight this to be on a safe side. Okay, and then I'll copy this, and then I'll run that command again. I will just clear all this, paste this in there, and then click enter, and then it returns. Okay, so now I think the problem here was this other one has a capital letter of Y, and this one has a small letter of Y, so that's the difference. The Python is case sensitive, really case sensitive, right? So now it returns a list. Remember, a list is anything that has what? Square bracket, right? So now currently it's only one item there. It's only one item there. So if there was another item that has such title, it will return all of them. Okay, so I will just go ahead and create another post. So I'll call this one post 2. Okay, post 2. And remember, to create a post, how do we do that? Remember, in the table name, right? The table name, and then in brackets those fields that we want to populate on in our database. Now those fields is what the post title. Sorry, one of them is post title. Post title. Okay, post title and is equals to what? This will be a string, so it will be the same title as the other one. Okay, the same title as the other one. And then next thing you want to do now is the post content. Okay, the post content, and then this post content won't be gibberish. Okay, so as we can actually identify this post from the other post. So here we'll just be testing a new post content. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, when you say how to create a post, you mean like how to insert
Yes, how to insert
data
yes,
in a table.
Exactly, how to insert data in a table. I don't know why
Okay.
I should say how to take a post. How to insert data in a table. Okay, so now to insert that data in a table, now we have to, since this table has since this table has these two fields there, the post title and the post content, it means that in order to insert data here, okay, in order to insert data here, that we must specify those two fields, right? That's because these fields, they are compulsory, or shall I say required, right? Those fields, they are required. Okay, if we never wanted it to be required, we could have used null equals true, it's an option, okay? But don't worry about that. We'll use that later in the track, okay? We'll use that later, right? But for now, these fields are compulsory, meaning that in order to insert data here, that Django expects you to give these two fields, right? These two fields you must give them, right? Now for this other field, we've now handed over to Django, and now let Django to add that field automatically, right? So as for the remaining two, we have to manually add them, okay? We have to manually add them. And I said to insert a new data there, we use the table name, okay? The table name. Now in bracket are the table fields, and then the data you want to put on that fields. So this is the first field that says post title, and this is the data we want to put here also. This is the other field, post content, and this is the data you want to put there also. Now we have to assign this whole process to what? A variable name, right? That's assignment from assignment statement in Python. So after assigning that, we now go ahead and click enter, right? So now, and after that, when this is executed, that this content only dwells within where this variable. If we go ahead and we say post, okay, remember to extract all the records, okay, on that table, we do post.object, okay, .all, and to grab all the records in that table. All right, so currently this our second post has not been inserted, so that means that this second post only lives within where here that variable there. Okay, so now we have 2 to 5. All right, so now we have 2 to 5. All right, so now let's go ahead and save that variable, and then let's see if it's been added to our database. So now it is supposed to, that variable name is post2, and then we go ahead and execute the save function .save. So this is since it's the function I wanted to execute immediately, we go ahead and put the open and close braces, and then we click enter, and that has been added to our database. Now, if I go ahead and do the post.object.all again, we now have the 6th object there. Okay, now we now have the 6th object there. So now if I go ahead and let's say I want to filter again, I want to filter again, right? I want to filter again. So let's say I come here and I say post. Now post being the table name, the object, okay, dot filter. Now what do I want to filter with? Now I have to filter with a field that exists where in this table, right? So if I come here and try to filter by a field that does not exist, okay, that does not exist. Let's say I try to filter by a field that says gender, right? Now we know that this field does not exist. I want to filter this gender. This gender by this. Why web developer earns so much, okay? Now if I go ahead and execute this, it shows us an error, a very long error, right? But this error looks scary. But what you do is you go to the last line of this error. It's always likely to be the last line, and then we have something to read, because all these are things that we can never read. Or okay, we can read, but we might not actually have an understanding of what is going on there, right? So it's likely to be the last line, all right? So if you come to this last line here, okay, now we have something readable. Okay, now it says that Django.core.exceptions, right? That's an exception. Remember exception in Python, right? So since this is Django, okay, what manages their exception is Django, is in Django.core, right? And that exception name is field error. Okay, that error there is called field error, and it says that it cannot resolve keyword gender into field, right? The choices are date posted, ID, post content, and post title. Okay, so that's the only field that exists in that table, right? That's the only column that exists in that table. So if we do something like that gender does not exist there, right? So it gives us this choice that we have date posted, post content, and post and post title, and then I say that ID is automatically created for us, right? Because each of these record has a unique, like something must differentiate one record from another record, and that thing is known as the ID of that record. Okay, they can never be the same. They can never be the same. So the ID of that record. So Django does that automatically. If you go to our table, the ID is not here. We not add it, right? But Django added it automatically, right? So if you try to filter by a field that does not exist, we have that error there. So we got it and we fix that error. So I will change gender to post title, right? Post title. Post title, and I click enter, and now it returns. And now it returns two elements in a list, right? That's because these two elements have the same post title. Okay, it has the same post title. So now, by default, if you filter something, even if it's only one element that matches that filter will be returned in a list format. Okay, in a list format. That filter will always come in a list format. So that's why if we go back here and see where we filtered before, which was here. Now you see, if this thing was only one, it was just one item there, but yet it still return it in what? In a list format. There's square bracket there and there's a square bracket there, right? It will always return this in a list format. So let's assume that you want to get the first elements here, right? Let's assume that you want to get this first element there, right? So normally what we will do is we will look through this list, because that's a list. So meaning that we can list through that, right? And then we say that once we are in, if that actually, right, okay, let me go here. So what we have done there, right? Because that's a list. What we have done there is to look through that list, right? Because let's say for I, and then that list, right? Then in the list, let's say that list was L, right? Let's say we call that list L, right? And then what we have done here, we have said if I is equals to 0, right? And 0, that is the index of 0, right? If I is equal to 0, or because 0, that 0 now being the index of what? So it will be for I in range, right? In range. That's how we have done it. I in range of len of L, right? So that's what we would have done here for I in range of len of L. Okay. Now, if I is equal to 0, we want to get that update. Where and say we print that I, right? And this will give us that first item on that list. Okay. But Django saves us all this stress because that's about 3 lines of code to get just the first element there. Okay, the first element there. So now, Django now says, right, instead of going through all that, right, what if you quickly say you want to get all right, so that what? Okay, so let's go ahead and filter this again, because we want to filter this again, but now we want to put this in a variable. Let's put this in a variable called X, right? And then we click enter. Now nothing show, right? If I go ahead and print X, now it shows that query set, right? It shows that query set, that 2 of them there, right? So now what if you want to get this first element here, right? This first element here, what we have done would have been that code that I just wrote there, this long code here for I in range len of L, for I, if I is equals to 0, then we get that particular element. Okay, but then Django now says that you can now use a particular command. Let's say X now, because this query set here now, right, lives where this query set now lives where in this X variable. That's why when we print this X, we now have this query set, right? That means from X now we can now have access to where? To all these query sets here. So now we can now say X. We can now go ahead and say, okay, let's see what we can do. Let's see. But let's see if we say X.object, right? This should give us an error, I believe. Dot first, right? Dot first. This will grab the first element, but let's see if this works. First, let me spell that correctly. First. Dot first. X.object dot first. And it says that Yeah, it says that query set has no
The
attribute of.
the S you put on the objects.
No, the objects will have an S. The object comes with an S. So it says, that's what it says. It says attribute sets object has no attribute object. Right. So let's see what's going. Let's see what's going on there. Right. So now, okay. So now instead of, let's say, instead of assigning this, okay, to a variable and try, and because this variable, okay, only holds the filtered query set, okay. The X itself is not actually the query set, okay. So we can run dot object on X, okay. X dot object is only meant to be used with query set, okay, right? I don't know if you understand what I mean. Okay, let me see how I can explain that in a different way. So now I'm saying that X is equals to this, right? Let's say X is equals to this, blah blah blah, all these answers, right? But in Django, this should be a query set, okay? So I'm only saying that this query set is being stored in X, right? And we can only run dot object, okay? Dot object, we can only run it directly on a query set, okay? Dot object, it can only be run directly on a query set, right? So now, when I came here and answer X dot object, right? X is just a variable that is holding this query set, right? So X cannot perform the dot object operation, okay? This X cannot perform that operation. So now, what can we do now? What we can do is we can actually run this on the query set directly, right? So that what we now do is, instead of assigning this to the X, right? We remove that X and let it just be there on its own. So we go ahead and run the, we now go ahead and apply it. Since this dot object can only be applied on a query set, so that means you can change this filter so that you can actually add the dot first here, okay? Meaning that after being filtered, okay, because if I run this, it returns two query sets, okay? So and now say after this has been filtered here, okay, because this filter will return a list of all the records that has of all the records that has post title where web developer earn so much. So after that has been filtered, I want to go ahead and get the first one, right? The first query set. So if I click enter now, it returns the first query set, which is this one there, dot object. We want the post object, the feed one. Okay. Now if I do the same thing, but then I do last, right? It returns the last one, which is the sixth one. Okay. So now Python saves all that stress. I mean, Django saves all that stress of doing this, right? Of doing this. So you can just add this. Now, what I've done here is known as chaining of filters. That's, you are chaining it because this here is the first one that says filter by the post title. Now, one that is done, and then go ahead and chain another one that says after this filtration, I want you to get the first, or the last one, okay? The last one. So you can actually have more chain, like meaning that we can have more and more and more chaining that's going on here. So now what I can actually do now is, let's say that what I can do now here is I can now come here and now say, after it has been filtered, okay, I want you to filter again. That's after this first filtration, okay, I want you to go ahead and filter again, right? Filter and another one, right? But this time around, filter what? Filter post content. This time let's filter post content, right? I'm just showing an example of how this can be changed, okay? But naturally, I don't know why. I don't see any reason why we want to filter a post content, because the content can actually be over 1,000 lines. Okay, so but I'm not showing you how this could work, right? That you can actually change lot of filters here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and grab one title here that says testing testing a new post content. So I'm going to copy that and then I'll paste it down there. So what's happening here is after the first filtration, right, which we actually bring two of these because two of them has the same title. It now go ahead and filter these two again that has a particular post content that which says testing a new post content. So if I execute this, if I execute this, it go ahead, it now returns just one query state, and that is the sixth one because that sixth one has a title of why developer earns so much, and also went ahead and have a filter. I also went ahead and have a content of testing a new post content. Okay, so this you can change this as many filters as you want, okay, so
Okay,
so this will always
what of the thing the filter display you wanted to try the other time? There's
mean all the records
you
of that
wanted to try to print, like now the way you tag the first filter now, I mean you want to print only that first filter out.
okay, they just the first, okay, all right, so now currently there's only one element here, right, and this element will always be in a list. Now remember that each time we filter, that even if that element is just one, that element will always be in a list, right? So now we can now go ahead and say I want to get the first one, right? So if it's one, so that one is just the first one there, right? That's just the first one there, and it now returns. Now the difference between this one and this other one now is that this other one was in a list. Now this one is outside the list. We've actually extracted it from that list now and now have it singly, all right? So dot first, now get that, right? So let's see if the dot last will work, which I think it should work because it is the first and the last. It's the only one there, so I believe it should be the first and the last. So it still brings out the same element, okay? It still brings out the same element. So that's with that, right? So currently we've seen how to get all the records, and we've seen how to insert, we've seen how to filter, okay? We've seen how to get, all right, so let's run one more thing, right? Let's run one more thing. Let's run one more thing. So I'll go ahead, let me go ahead and assign this to a variable, right? Let me go ahead and assign this whole training thing to a variable. So I'll call it X. I'll assign this to X, all right? I'll assign this to X. So now I said that that we cannot run the dot object on X, okay? That's because the X only holds this query set, okay? So we can only run it on the query set itself, right? But but with X, we can actually access each field of this, all this field, right? That's only what X can do. X can only access the fields, okay? But you cannot run the dot object on it, right? You cannot run the dot, the sixth post, right? The sixth post. Now say you can get the post title as well as the post content and as well as the post date, okay? So if I come here and I post title, okay, I now have why web developer earns so much, okay? Now if I now say x dot post content, okay, post content, I now have testing a new post content. So I can as well have X. Remember that we did not put the date, but I'll go ahead and print the date for us. I can see if Python actually did that. So X dot date posted, and now we have this time zone that says 22nd of the 5th month, and the date was 30th. The date was 30th, and this is the time 1838 during the 59 second and 09 and 903631 milliseconds, all right? And the time zone here was UTC, all right? So that's the whole thing about that date there, okay? Now that was added automatically for us, okay? That was added automatically for us. So now we know how to insert, we know how to actually have access. So now if let's assume that you want to change this post title, right, to something else, okay? So what we can do is, since x dot post title will give us what, why web developer earn so much, okay, we can now do what, we can now say, okay, fine, I want x dot post title to be equals to, right? So now I want to assign a new title. So this title now, this title here now will now be assigning a new title. Okay. So if I run this, okay, now if I try to do the x dot title again, right? I should have this new title, right? I should have the new title. So I have the new title, but remember, each time we create, we need to save. The same thing happens each time we update, because what we are doing here, we are simply updating, right? So this thing here only lives in the x, right? So I have to actually run the dot save, right? X dot save, because we've just changed something, okay? So the x dot save, and then I click enter. All right, so now if I go ahead and say, and then filter, and then I want it, so now if I go ahead and now want to filter, let's filter something else. Let's see if I can bring out one about old. Okay, so I'll filter now with what, with this new title. Let's see if it actually saved to our database. So if I copy this and run this here and paste this, so now I want to filter with that title, and I run this, I now get that record there. Okay, so that means this has now been changed, and this has now been saved to our database. All right, so we can now go ahead and retrieve it. Okay, and this will always be in a list format. So I can now say I don't want that to become in a list format. I want to extract it from that list format. So I get the first one, the first, and we have that outside the list format. So question so far before we start into something else. Is there any complication with that? That's basically how we can interact with our database, right? So that's the basic of it. I don't really want to go into more, but this is what we are going. You will always likely to use them. Always likely to use them. But you will always use them. Not even likely. You will always use them, because they know how you want to filter something. You want to filter something. You always use the filter command, and then which field are you filtering with, and then what are you actually filtering? Do you want the first item or the last item, or do you actually want the entire list like that? Okay. Or do you want to change more filter? Do you want to change more filter? Okay, then you do that as well. Or do you want to update a particular field? Okay, so once this field is not updated, you have to go ahead and save it to our database. If not, that will not take effect in our database. So is there a question so far there? Right, so and before we move to another thing we want to do. All right, so I believe that was clear. It was easy, right? Yeah, it's easy. Believe me, it's easy, right? So now let's talk about relationships of database. So in order for a database to have relationship with a database, that means there must be two tables, okay? Because one table must have relationship with another table, okay? A table cannot have relationship with its own self, okay? A table cannot have relationship with its own self. So now, what we want to do here, there is, if you see in our admin page, we have the users table, okay? But we'll go ahead and create our own here, right? For now, but we're not going to use it, right? This table is what we will not use this table, okay? So after this illustration, I'll go ahead and delete that table, okay? So I'll go ahead and create a new table here for now, and I'll just cut this out, right? And that two command will remain there. So now I'll create a new table here, right? This table, I will call this table, let's say our user, right? Because why we can't name it users is because the user table already existed, right? So we have to call this one something else. So our user, so that it doesn't confuse us. Or let's say our customers. Let's say that let's just make it that way. Our customers. So no need to put S. That's because once it gets to the database, to the Django page, Django will automatically add is there. Okay. So now, as usual, we inherit from the model class, and we use the models to do that. Model.model, models.model, and then we go ahead and then we put in the fields we want on this table. So I'll go ahead and say user first name, right? So this will be our first field, user first name. User first name, another one will be the user last name. Okay. User last name. Okay. Let's just say L name. Okay, to make it easy for us, L name. And this one will be F name. F name being first name. Okay. And then next thing you want to do is user email. Right. Let's say user email. All right. So go ahead and now specify that one want to be child field and the other one to be. Don't go ahead and give them child field, right? But there's an email field. There's an email field. So okay, I'll go ahead and use that email field. So I'll just go ahead and use the email field. And there's an email field. Today it is email. Django has an email field. So that one, and we don't have to specify the length. Okay, we don't have to specify the length there. So now with this, we've created our table. So now what do we do after this? We go ahead and run these two commands. Okay. So before that, I want to add this to our admin real quick. Then I'll go ahead and run that command. So since they're in the same, since they are in the same place, so I'll go ahead and import that from the same file. They're in the same file, both the post and that new model, they're in the same file. So I'll just copy this and paste and then register our customer. So that is that. And then what is left now is for us to run these two. What is left now is for us to run these two. What is left now is for us to run these two. What is left now is for us to run that two command. That two command there, right? So you have to exit out of this shell, right? Out of this interactive shell. So we got with the exit keyword. Since it's a method, we have to invoke it with the open and close braces. Okay, and then we are out of that shell. So we go ahead and run our we go ahead and run our server again. I'm sorry, not our server. I have to go ahead and migrate those two files, that new table that we just created. So the first command is Python manage.py make migrations, right? And the second one is Python manage.py migrate. And that is that. Go ahead and run our server again. And then if we refresh our page, we now have our customers. Now, if you click on it, there's nothing there so far. Let's see our posts. So we've seen our post that we've created so far is there, right? So that if you look at this, that post assigning new title, the post was created there. Now we have this other one that we created, and why web developers earn so much with the content of that, and it was created as well. Okay, so that means we did interact with the database perfectly fine. Okay, so we have a new customer here, so I'll just add one for now, and then we go ahead and we probably will add the rest with our ORM. Okay, so I'll just add one here. So the first one I'll just add this is Thomas Shelby. Thomas, and last name is Shelby. And his emails will be, let's say, Thomas at whatever.com. Okay, at whatever.com. Let's say at email. Let's say at gmail.com. Right? It could be any email, it could be anything. So here was an email, meaning that we can't even save this without this. So right. So this field, in this field, we just let Django know that this place should be an email format. What I mean that if I try to, let's say I try to put just this without the way the email should be, and try to save this, I have that enter a valid email address, okay? Django won't let you even submit that without this extension as Gmail. You have to put an email. You have to put this in an email format, okay? So this how an email should be: your name and at whatevermail.com, okay? So go and save this, and that was saved. So if you click that, you see that, right? So that will be the only thing we will save there for now. Right? Oh God. Okay. So all right. So one thing is that I've forgotten to add something here, a username, right? So real quick, so we add a username here. Okay. So that it's actually good that I forget that, so that I'll show you something. I'll show you guys something right now. So this will be a model dot, sorry, models, not models, models dot. So models dot this should be a child field, right? This should be a child field, right? A username should be 10,000 max, right? Max then should be 10,000. 10,000 is even too much. Let's just say 50. Right? Let's just say 50. Let's just say 50. So now, remember, each time I say that, each time we make changes to our table, we have to do what? We have to run these two commands. So far we've done changes here. We've added something here. Okay, we've added something there. So now, what I can do here is to come back and then run that command again. Okay, so I'll just do the Python manage. Think of Python manage.py. So Python manage.make migrations, right? I click this, and it says, and it says here that it's impossible to add a non-nullable field username to customer without specifying a default. So what that means is that we are adding this field, all right, when this table has already existed, and not just existed, we've had one customer here, right? We've created an object here. So now that object there there was no space for username, okay? As when we created that record, right? This new record here, there was no username, okay? So now we're now adding a username field, okay, after that has been created. So now what this thing is asking us now is, what do we do to that one that existed already? All right, what do we do, or what do we add to those ones that have existed already? Okay, because when we created this, there was no username field, but now we now add a username field. What do we do to that, to those records, right, that has existed, or that has existed before we added this field here? What do we do? So that, what do we add there? Okay, so that's the question that's happening here. And it says that what we can, and here it gives us two options. The option one is we can provide a one-off default. Now, like, just go ahead and type in what we want to add there by default, okay? Or we quit and then we go ahead and we define a default value in the models.py. So I will advise always go with the second one, okay? So click 2 and go back here. So what we do here is we add a default. This default now will now be that anyone that has any other record that existed before now, all right? Go ahead and populate that record with this new field of username, and let that username now be Savvy, all right? I'll just use Savvy for now. So please, after running this, and then you come back here and you run the migrations again, right? Run your migrations again, and then that should work fine, okay? So now that has worked perfectly fine, right? So now if I go ahead and run this server again, now if you click on this object, remember this object was not there when username was being added, but now we've now specified that those updates or those files or those records that existed before then, go ahead and add this field there, and then let that field has the name Savvy in all of them. So if there was 1,000 record here that existed before now, that record will carry a username of Savvy. That's what it means, and it just happens here, right? This field was not there. This field was not there. That field was not there. So now it has Savvy by default. So all of them will have Savvy by default. So what this means now, that I can now create another model, right? Sorry, I can now come here and create another customer here, all right? Create new customer. Now, by default, this place is auto filled with service. That's because we specify that as being a default value. So now we can just go ahead and we put the other fields here, the other fields, right? But we don't want this. We don't want this to always be the case. We want the user to put his or her username by themselves. We don't want to put a default value.
What if you put an empty string?
Yeah. What if okay? Let's try putting an empty string, right? So let's see what happens there. Let's try putting an empty string. Let's see what happens there. So what we can do is we come here and we put an empty string, right? So and let's go ahead and run because now we've made changes there. So you have to run this code back up again, right? You have to run that code again. So we go ahead and say, I have to go ahead and say Python manager make migrations which and then migrate. Okay, so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens now. Okay, let's put back our server back on. Server back on, and then all right. So let's try adding a new. All right, so that I think that works, right? That worked perfectly well, right? That worked perfectly well. So you can now go ahead and do that and put your username and first, last, and second name. So that works as well, right? So in such situation, we could just now, but the problem this will have would be, let's assume that along the line we had a code, right? We had a code, okay, that we filtered by a username, right? And then any user that has not added his or her username by the time we added that username, okay, and then a user does not add that username, and probably along our code we have a point that says filter by a certain username, okay, by that user's username, but then we have an empty string, right? That code might actually break, but for now this works. This solved that problem, right? That solved the problem of that default, okay?
Maybe we can filter by empty string.
Yeah, probably we can filter by empty string, right? So that's also a good idea, okay? So now what I would say that only add this default when necessary, okay? So now it was necessary that we add this default. That was because we had we had records that existed, right, without this field here. So it was necessary to add that default. So what I normally do is after I've run my migrations and then fill up those existing records, I come back and remove it because I don't want this place to be by default. I want the user to actually create this automatically on his or her own self, okay? So I'll go ahead and move that default there. So now there's no record that have existed now without that field. All our records have existed with that field, right? So now our migration should work just fine. So I'll go ahead and run that migrations again because I have edited that field. Make migrations, and it says alter the freezer name. Yeah, I did that, and I said migrate and run server, right? So I would say do that. Only use that. Only leave the default there if it is necessary. Okay, if it's necessary, only leave it there. All right. So far we have our customer, and this customer has only.
Even if we not put the default, it's going to run.
You mean even if we not add the default?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it will run in a sense that as if that default was necessary. That default
wanted to make people to add it in the database.
Yes, that default was necessary for data that have existed without this field, and that data we created did not had existed without this field. So that default was necessary, so as that field will populate in those other data. Okay.
Then after so that,
yes. After that, another. So from this moment henceforth, once you want to create a new customer, you have to put your username by yourself. Okay. So that was why I did that. All right. So let me explain that again for those of us that are not here, okay? Because you're having an interference, so most people are not really hearing, okay? So I said that while I added that default, it was necessary for me to add that default at that point because they were records that had existed in our database, okay? That existed in our database, okay? That did not have this field, okay? So now I added that default, and because the moment you add this field, okay, and then try to run these two commands, okay, Django will add this field to those records that existed already, okay? So now Django is now saying, when I want to add this field to those records that existed already, how do I save it? Because those record has been saved already. Okay? So I'm simply adding this field to that record, and I can't just add an empty field, like a field that is required, because for a field to be required, we do not have to specify null. Okay, so as far as we not add null, it means that this field is required. So Django can't just add this field there without any, like without having something to fill in that field. So now we now say, okay, let's add the default value. Now that default value will now get added to those records that existed before the time we added this field. Okay, so now once that is being added, you can now come now and now remove that default, because personally I don't want a default kind of username. Okay, I want you to create your username by yourself, and I want it to be compulsory. Now if I leave here default equals to default equals to the empty string, okay, it means that a user can fill in all this and leave this field blank, okay, and this field will just be there as an empty string. Meanwhile, I need that field. I myself, the developer, need that field. Okay, so what happened that I came back and then I remove it to make that field compulsory, that you must fill that field, like, okay, like you must fill it. So now that default was only necessary for data that have existed already. Okay, so now it happens that at times you may be hired as a developer, and then you go to a company that has a lot of records, and then the day you create a database that stores staff's records. Okay, there will already there's a database that stores that, right? But now they now say, okay, fine, that we have a new principle that now we now get staff passport. Okay, let's assume that then there was no staff passport, but they've been using that database, right? But there was no staff passport. All of a sudden, the manager says, I need staff passport. What do you do? Okay, what do you do at that point? Do you go ahead and delete all their records and now add staff passport and now tell them that they should now go and start again and do fresh or a new registration, and so that they can add their passport? You won't do that. Okay, you won't do that. What you do is you add that field and then set a default value, and then you tell them, please, as in your own spare time, go and do what? Upload your passport. Your details are still there. You just added a new field called passport, right? So now once that is done, you want to go ahead and remove that default value. Why do you want to remove it? So that once a new staff comes, if there was a default value there, a default picture, right, for all staff, but once you put a default picture, all staff will have the same picture. So you won't have to put someone's picture. You can put like a cartoon picture or an avatar kind of picture. Okay, so that one is more like a default picture. Okay, so it won't be an actual human being face, right? Because imagine your face showing on all the records, right? So it might be like a cartoon or an avatar, or like there's an empty image, right? Just put it there as a default kind of image. Now, so now that image now will now be added to all the existing staffs, right? Now it's your duty to now tell them that they should go on their own spare time, not compulsory. Okay, that's because there's a default value there, so it's not compulsory again, right? So I have to, in their own spare time, go and change your picture, put your actual picture. So now what happens then is that whenever a user now goes there, the user can now change his or her picture to his or her own self, right? So now, after that has been done, you want to come back and remove that default option, meaning that each time a new staff come, you want that staff to automatically and is required that that staff must upload his or her picture by themselves, okay? Now, they won't have the chance of having that default picture. That default picture was only for those that had already existed in the system. Every new one, you must put your picture by yourself, okay? So I believe that is understood. The default stuff there is understood. So that default was necessary. That's because we had this data here. So in order to add this field can be empty. So we added that default of survey. So now if I was in a company now, the web dev now we now have to announce it anyhow or using their means of announcement. Please go and update your username. Now, in my own spare time, once I come here and I realize that this is not my own username, I can now come here and now change it to my own username, meaning like something like Zavi. This one, okay, I think this was my own username, and I change it to this and then save it. Now, that is me that is me that has existed in that system, okay? But now a new user comes, a user cannot leave that field. A user cannot use that field empty and come here and say something like, let's say Polly, right? Let's say Polly Shelby, okay, Shelby, and then Polly Shelby or Polly at mail.com, okay, and then save. Now that field now becomes required, right? A user cannot leave that, right? But I that has existed, right? That field has been added to me with a default value. So it's not my own duty to now go and change that value to whatever I want. So now, but new user must fill this one to what they want, so they can say that this one can now come and say that his or her own username now is now Poly 222 or anything 622 or anyone. They just say 222 and then save this. New user created. Understood? I believe there's no question there. Is there a question there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is why we added that default there. Okay, so now right, so now relationship. All right, so now I said that in Django we have basically three kinds of relationship, right? We have the many-to-one relationship, we have the many-to-many relationship, we have the one-to-one relationship. Okay. All right, so sorry. Okay, so I said that there are three kinds of relationship in Django, right? We have the one-to-one, the many-to-many, and the many-to-one, right? So we might not cover all because we're running out of time, right? But we cover the basic one, right? Like at least we try to touch at least one, right? If you cannot cover all today, right? Probably during the course of building our projects, okay, we will discuss the other part of this relationship, okay? But for now, I'll talk about the foreign key relationship. Okay, that's sorry, not the foreign many to one. Okay, now many to one. Now to specify that something is many to one, foreign key, right? But don't worry, I'll show you what that means in a second. Right. So let's assume that this post, right? So if you go to people's site, okay, we have, like, you see a post, they drop a post, and then you see that post, we have the author of that post, and so on and so forth. Okay, you have the author of that post, and so on and so forth. All right, but in this our own post, right? In this our own post here, right? I don't know why I'm calling that post. Probably in this post, yeah, post. Looking for how I can call it some different name, but let's just call it post. Let's just call it post. Right. So in this our own post, right? We do not have any author. Now there's no author in this post. We just have post title, post content, and post date posted. Sorry. So now, who posted this post or who made this post? We don't know. We cannot tell who made the post. Now, if you go to our site and then we try to even check the post, let's see this post. We have post 6. We just notice that there is not showing who made that post. Nobody don't know who made this post. So how can we tell who has one post or from another post? How does Facebook know your post from my post? Or how does Twitter know your post from my post? That's because my post will always be attached to me. Okay, you have to attach that post to me because I'm the one that made that post, right? So that attaching is called relationship. Me and that post, we have relationship. And what kind of relationship do we have? We have a many-to-one relationship, meaning that I, Savior Basi, can make as many posts as possible, only I. Okay, but that post cannot make cannot make as many Savior Basi as possible. Okay, I don't know if I'm confusing you guys there. Okay, I believe you guys are following, right? Many to one, right? So let's say that this post, right, has a relationship with this customer. Let's assume that, right? Let's just assume that for the moment, all right? And then let's say that the post, right, is having a many to one relationship, right? Let's bring it down here. That this post is having what? A many to one, relationship, all right? Many to one relationship, okay? So let's say that, yeah,
Can we call it
can we call it what?
one to many?
No, we cannot call it one to many. Okay, it's a one-way thing. It's a one-way thing. Okay, it moves from many to one, right? It does not move from one to many. So we can't call it one to many. We must call it many to one. It's a one-way thing, right? This kind of relationship is a one-way thing. It moves from many to one, which I will show you what that means. So let's say that it is, so let's say that the post, right, is having what? The many, right? To what? To one what? Relationship, right? So okay, let's make it. So let's say that many to one. I know that I've written this up there, but don't worry, I'll show you where I'm doing this one, right? So same thing up and down, many to one, right? So let's say that it is what, let's say that it is the post that's having the many to one relationship with what? The customer, right? So here we have posts here, right? So now is the post here that's having what? This many to one relationship, and what is having the one? The one here is what? Our customer. Now, what this simply means, what this simply means is that this post or this table has a many to one relationship with this customer. It means that a single record here, in the customer field, because the customer field now is the one that's having the one, right? The one. So it means that a single record here. Let me show you what I mean here. Let's go to Chrome. Let's go to our customer, right? Customer. What's going on? Okay. Oh gosh, this will not allow me to just explain this thing. Right. Let me comment on that out. Right. So, all right. So if this means that a single row, right? So this a single record. So that's a single record. Let me mark one here. So that's a single record. Let's say that record. It means that record can has or can relate or can have many records in the post model, right? In the post model that or in the post table, right? So what I'm trying to say here, right? Let me uncomment this out again. What I'm trying to say here is that I can have many posts, right, in this post table, right? Now, in order to know who owns that post, right, I have to know what the author of this post or the poster or the owner of the account, right? Learning how you work again, what to put it, right? It's a Bible name, so you can be anything. So I have to know who owns what? This post, okay? I have to know who owns this post. Normally, I can leave that blank, but have you ever gone to Facebook and then type a post and then still type in your username so that Facebook can know that it's you that owns that post? Facebook will automatically know that it's you that owns that post. That's because as far as you've set up in with their platform, right? And then you make a post, they'll know that it's you that owns that post, right? You don't have to make a post, like make a post title, post content, and still go ahead and put your username. Okay? That's not possible. It cannot be. Okay. As far as you sign up in the account, they know who owns that post, right? They automatically associate that post with you. You may not actually know, but that's how they do it, right? They associate you and some certain post, right? Each time you make a post, they will associate you with that post and like attach that post, and they will attach that post to you. That relationship there is called many to one. That's because you can make as many posts as possible, and from that post they can know your username, they can know your first name, they can know your last name, they can know your email, right? How do they do that? You did not put your first name on that post, your last name was not on that post, your email was not on that post, okay? But from that post they know your first name, your last name, your username, your email. Okay, how do they do that? That's because they have a table called the post table, and that table collects all the posts from everybody, from me, from you, from all of us. Okay, that table collects all our posts. Okay, now how do I know your post from my post? You now associate your own post to you. Okay, so that means within and behind the scene, your posts have this field called the author field behind the scene. There is not there on the front end, like where they tell you put your name, your Facebook name, sorry, your username, your first name, last name, and email. It's not there, right? But behind the scene, there's this field here that there's this field here called the author field, or whatever they name theirs. Okay, but in this case, we'll call this field the author field, right? Because I want to associate this post to whosoever owns this post. Okay, and then this will be a many to one relationship. Now, I said that it's a one-way thing. Okay, it's a one-way thing. It's a many to one, not one to many. Like you can't interchange it. Okay, so now to do this, to actually put this kind of relationship into coding, and we make use of the keyword called, or sorry, we make use of a field called foreign key. It's like a field, the same field like chat field or date time field or email field. But this around this field is called foreign key field. Okay, it's a foreign key field. Sorry, foreign key, right? We use that field to do what? To associate users. We use that field to associate users to one another. Okay, we use that field to associate users to one another, and so to associate one record to multiple records, right? So I said that since this table will have as many posts as possible, because people post up and down. Okay, people will always post every day of their life, right? And someone can post 10 times in a day without no restriction, just keep posting. Now, this table might have over 10,000 posts. Out of these 10,000 posts, we posted only 10 times. So how do we know our post? Or how do we find our post? That means this post has to relate to us, okay? So behind the scene, there's a field called author field or poster field or honor field, or anyhow you want to name that field, okay? Anyhow they want to name it, right? So in our case, we will name it author, right? And then the table, right? The table that is having this relationship, right? This many to one relationship are the one that has this foreign key, okay? What I mean here is, let me explain right here, right? So since this table is a table that will have many of our posts, all right? It is this table that will have many of our posts, right? This table here will have many of our posts, right? So it's the one that has the many, right? Now it is this table that has our record, right? And this record here would be like a single record, okay? A single record. By default, we have just one single record, okay? So this one now, will now be the one field, okay? That is the many to one. So this is the many and this is the one, right? So now it is this post, right, that wants to relate with what? It is the post that wants to relate with the customer, right? It's not the customer that wants to relate with the post, right? Because the customer was on its own. We don't want to relate, but the post says that we are having too many posts and we do not know who has who, or who has which one, or which one has which ones, right? Now, what we can do is we can now come here and say that I want this field to relate with this field. And we do that using a field called, we still use our models, okay, but this time around, not the char field, not the date time field. This time will be the foreign key. Now the foreign key, right? That's the field there, right? And then this foreign key now takes in two required arguments. The rest are optional, right? But these two you must add it. Now the two, now the first one is, what do you want to relate with, which table, or which table do you want to relate with, right? So now this already has now tell Django that this table wants to, or this particular column here, right? This particular column here wants, or this table here, anyhow I want to put it, wants to relate, wants a many-to-one relationship with this, with a particular table. Now we have to specify that table in this bracket, and that table is customer table, right? Now, remember, the table that you want to relate with must be above us, right? So that means this customer must be above us, right? So if this post was above here, we could have cut it and bring it down here. But if this customer is below us, what we do is we put this thing in strings, in quotation. We do this. That's if the customer is below us, right? We put it in strings, right? But since it's above us, we just put the name of that table there without those strings, okay? So now the other argument is on delete, okay? On delete equals to models. It must be this way, model dot cascade, right? Dot cascade, right? So let me tell you what that means. Model dot cascade. What this thing means, that we are relating to what our customer table, okay? And then the on delete here means that if we are relating to a particular customer, because this thing means we are relating to just one author, okay? We are relating to one author in this here, right? Here, right? So now it means that if we go ahead and delete that author, we should go ahead and delete whatsoever post, right? That this author has made. That's what it means, okay? We'll go ahead and delete it as well, because there's no point of you have left our system. Why am I keeping your post? So once you delete your account from my system, everything about it should be gone as well, okay? Your post, all the posts you've made should be deleted as well, okay? That's what this second argument means, okay? So there's another one that you can say on delete equals to models dot protected, right? What it means that if you delete what that one means, that if you delete your account, you should that our database should go ahead and keep your post, right? But we don't want that. Once your account is gone, your post should be gone as well, okay? So we use the models dot cascade, right? So there are three options there, right? There are three options. The cascade, there's protected, and then there is can't remember the other one. There are three of them, okay? But this is the one we want to stick with. We want your record to be gone once you are gone, okay? So now with this, we have said that once a post is made, I want to attach a particular user, okay? So now remember, we have records of posts that have existed without this author, right? Without this author here, okay? So now we have to put what the default, so we can go ahead and run our migration, so we understand what we are doing here. So now this default, we cannot put string, we cannot put anything, we cannot put we can't put string, we can't put like, let's say we come here and put a username, all right? So now by default, what will happen here is what we do once it comes to relationship, okay? What I will advise us to do is if there's a record that have existed without before then, use one, okay? Just put one there, okay? What that one means is just grab any record that existed here, the first one I added here, okay? Just put one there, because if you go ahead and put string here, they'll tell you that string is not that string is not an object of this. Okay, so just put one. Just put a number, but always put one. I will recommend you put one, because one will always be there, except that record, except we don't have any record of this at all. Okay, so just put one there by default.
At all, what are we going to do? Still put one.
What did you say?
Don't have any record at all.
Okay,
Can we
if you
still
don't have any record at all of that, we have to create a record because we cannot associate an empty record. Right? Because this field is compulsory, right? It's compulsory. We're making it compulsory there. So what you do is you want to go ahead and make at least one record here, okay? Go ahead and make one record here.
After asking the question.
Okay. All right. So someone else has a question.
Please, can you mute your mic after asking the question so that we can hear the people?
Okay. Okay. All right. So the question was, what if we don't have any record of this our customer? Because that's the record we want to attach to, okay? Like we want to relate with. So I said that if you don't have any record, and because this field is required, right? In order to make this field not required, there's an option that says null, right? Equals true. That null means that we want that place that this can be empty, that this place can be left empty, but we don't want that, okay? We don't want that. But if this was specified, right, we can go ahead and move this default because here now makes it not required, okay? But we don't want that. We want that field to be required. So I'll move that null, right? So now I said that if there's no record of this, because we are actually inheriting from our, sorry, not inheriting, we are actually relating to our customer, right? Our customer table. So either our customer table does not have any record, okay, any record at all. We want to do what? We want to go ahead and do what? First of all, we want to go ahead and create at least one record in that table and then add this default equals to 1. Add 1, always add a number, right? When it comes to foreign, when it comes to relationship, always add that if there's a post update already, okay, or a post record already that existed, always add a number of what we are relating to, okay? So you want to go ahead and create this at least one record and then we add this, okay? So now go ahead and run this migration and then we'll see what this actually looks like in the admin page, right? So okay, let's go ahead and cut this out. So I'll go ahead and run the Python manage.migrations, right? It says added a field author to post, okay, and then we migrate, and that works, right? So I'll go ahead and do what? I'll move it. I don't want that to always be our default. And then I'll run this again. Migration, and then migrate. Okay, and then our server should come up back on again, all right? Okay, so let's see what's happening here. Let's see what that field actually did in our database. So if I go to our post and then I will click on any post, right? So now we've seen we now have a field called author, and this author now relates to a particular. Now it has an option of which we can choose which author, right? Oh, this is showing as objects. Let's see how we can make this wonderful. All right. So okay, this one is quick. Just this one is simple, right? Just in if we've noticed, right? If we notice all so far, each time we create something, he returns that table name object and then count it. Same with this, all right? And this is confusing for us right now because I can't really explain what I want to explain now. It's confusing. It's showing our customer object 1, right? That happens to be the first object that we created there, right? But it's confusing. So let's do something. So now what we do is that there's how we can specify to or tell our model. Question.
Sorry, is he making use of? Okay, I remove the default. It's like he's making use of the ID.
Yes, yes, is the ID. That default is that number is the ID. So it must be is the ID of what has been created. That's the first one, okay? So he's making use of that number, okay, of the first element there, okay? And that's what we want, okay? So this relationship, okay, we have to pass in a customer object, okay? It must be a customer object. So we are simply saying that the default. So if we pass this in, if we pass the default.
Sorry, sir. I think reason why we put that default is because of we are inserting a field. in the
Yes,
record.
yes, we are inserting a record from another table.
After that, you can now remove it.
Yes, after you can now move it. So you go ahead and move it because we don't want it to always be that record, okay? We don't want it to always be that record. Okay, so okay, so I said that this thing here is confusing somehow, right? We can't really tell who is this. We know that this is our customer and this is our second customer, but how do we know which one is which one? Okay, so what we can do is we can come to our models, right? Our models, and then we now tell Python that each time we save a new model, I, I don't want you to be showing this, right? To be showing this for us. I want it to be showing something else, okay? So how do we do that? We use within our class, we do a function, right? We create a new function, all right? So this function will be a special kind of function, right? Which will, let me show you what this will do. This function will be the double underscore function. Remember, we did this kind of thing in our class back then, during classes when we did OOP, okay, which we did for init. I said that these kind of functions are always kind of special functions, okay, and they are being handled separately, okay. So now, the one that we want to write now is not the init, okay, is the str function, double underscore str double underscore again, okay. So because this is the function that's inside a class, remember it takes the self as a parameter. So now this function is the one that will execute when we create a new object, right? When we make a new record, like when we add a new record, this function will execute, okay. And then this function, we now want to tell this function that we want to return. Now, once this thing is saved, I don't want you to return this because this thing is returning this customer object 2, customer object 1. We don't want that, okay? We want this thing to return something else. So you can now come here and say that once an object is saved, or once a record is being made, I want you to go ahead and return a string, okay? This should be a string. And this string will be, I want it to be an F string, or return, we just say, go ahead and return self dot what username, right? Return self dot username, okay? Meaning that once I save new customer, I don't want to be seeing this thing. I want to be seeing their username, not customer object or customer object 2 or customer object 1, okay? I don't want to be seeing that. I want to be seeing a username, okay? So remember, this is a special function, so it must be that way, double underscore str double underscore, okay? And it takes self, because I said that any function within a class, this function is inside this class. So any function within this class must take this self as a parameter, a required parameter. And then we are saying that we want to save or you want to return whatever the person save as their username, okay? That we want to. So we'll do the same thing for this our post. Do the same thing for our post there, and then we paste this here and just say here you want to return self dot what post title. Right? So I'm saying that once I set a new post, I don't want to see that post object 1, post object 2, post object 3, right? I want to see the post title itself, not all those things. That is making life confusing and difficult for us, right? So if I refresh this string should go, right? So why I did not run the python manage.py here is because, right, we did not actually change anything in the here, right? So it is here that actually matters, okay? All this function does not really matter, right? This is the column, okay? These are the fields in that table, okay? So it's either when you're adding a new field or when you're changing a field, right? So if you're adding a function like this, you don't have to run the python manage.py or migrate stuff, okay? It just works automatically. So I'll just refresh this real quick, and then we have this. So now we are seeing our username. The first one here is Zavi, sorry, which is this username here. So then you change this to Thomas, right? Let's change this to Thomas. Makes life easier, right? So I'll save that as Thomas. And here one is poly222 as username. So if I go to post and I have post, so these are first post 1 with this gibberish, first post 2, first post post 3, right? While web developer earns so much and assigning new. So these are all our titles of our post, right? So we're actually returning that. So this makes it readable and makes it easier, right? So I believe this way is comfortable. Okay. So now back to our post again. So let's click on this our post. And now we can see that we have Thomas here, right? We have Thomas here, right? We have Thomas here being assigned to author. That's because we say that we want to assign the first record in this thing. So the first record here was Thomas. So we are assigning Thomas to all the existing posts that have existed. Okay. So far we had all these posts. All these posts existed before then. Okay. So we are assigning Thomas to all of them. That's why we come here. We have Thomas. If you go to another post, let's say this one has why web dev and so much. We have Thomas, right? Thomas is being assigned there. Now I can come here and add multiple posts. So now why now if you can see now we are now having many to one relationship. That's because Thomas can now have multiple posts. Only Thomas alone, right? That is many to one. Okay. Thomas now have multiple because all these posts here are written by Thomas, right? So we can come, let's say we have another post, right? Now we have a new post, let's say new post, right? New post 3, all right? Let's say the post 3 and gibberish here, put something there, right? So now in this author now we cannot we can't should I say we can't save this now. That's because that field now becomes required, right? But when you go to your Twitter and then you put something and then you post something and then it posts, right? You don't have to put your username or stuff like that, right? That's because behind the scene there's this field, right? This field was not given to you to fill it. They fill this post, that field there for you automatically, and I'll show you how you do that as we move on. Okay. So now we have to assign this post to someone, right? So now it makes sense. Now all our posts now must now belong to someone. Okay. So now if I come here, we can now have a drop down and we cannot have more than one human here. Okay, we cannot have more than one human. So if I click this and now we cannot click more than 2. We cannot click 2 things, right? It must be 1. Okay, that's many to 1, right? Many to 1 in the sense that it must be 1 user, right? And then this user can have multiple posts, many to 1 relationship. Okay. Then so now this time let's assign this post to Polly. Let's assign that post to Polly. Okay. So now another thing again is let's say let's press another post. This one is testing new. Okay, and then GB. So the good thing is that since this thing has a relationship, okay, it's linking to another table, meaning that we can stay on this post table and create another record of our customer. Okay, so far we have just 2 of this, right? So we have, but since this is a foreign key relationship, meaning that this thing here now means that we can now this thing here means that from here we can have access to here, right? That's what it means, that from here we can now have access to here. That's what it means. So now we can, you see this plus here, it means that we can actually add a new customer from here. Okay, we can have a new customer from here. So you can now say test user, right? You can now say test user, and this one will be user. This one will be test as first name and user as second name as well as email. Okay, so you can now say test user at gmail, okay, .com, okay, and then we can now save, right? Meaning that from here we can now right? That was just happening here. That user got assigned automatically, right? That user got assigned automatically, right? So now we now have 3 users: Thomas, Polly, and test user. So we go ahead and assign this one to the user right there, and then we save this.
So get another one.
Like another user.
Yes, sir.
Should I create it from the post or from our customer itself? Because both of them
Just
now.
The same thing you did, like
Okay.
user, how?
Okay. So now let's assume that I want to create a new post, right? And this post will not be let's say something. Let's just say upcoming upcoming election, right? Of course, we have election upcoming, right? There's an upcoming election. This one we just say that whatever party wins, we just win, right? So just put another do this day, okay? And then let's say I have a user here that I wish to add a new user, but that user is not here, right? So what I can do is I can now go to our customer and then create a new user, right? And then come back here and then assign it to here. But because this will have not, because these people now have a foreign key relationship, they now relate to each other. I can now create it from here right away. Okay. So if I click on that plus, this plus that's here, right? This plus that's here. I click on it. Can I come here and add another test user 2, right? Test user 2, and then we have this 2 as first name and user 2 as second name, and we have test user 2 at gmail.com. So this is the user I want to add, okay? So in order for me to add this user must be saved first, right? Because if the user is not saved, I cannot add it, okay? You cannot assign a post to someone that does not exist in your database. Let's assume that let's assume that you don't have an account on Facebook, and then all of a sudden you see a post on Facebook that has your name and your account, all your things, right? That means that kind of thing cannot happen, right? Probably someone that wants to frame you, okay? But that kind of thing that does not happen, right? A post cannot be made without that user being in their database, okay? So same thing here. So that user must be in a database. That's how you have to save it first, and then it will automatically get assigned to this post. And then you can now go ahead and then save this post. And then we can now see that, right? We can now see that. So so that's that, right? So that's that with the foreign key, right? So that's that with the foreign key. I don't know if both of them. Let's see if I can run one more kind of relationship. The 1-to-1. Let's see the difference between 1-to-1, right? So far, if you look at this, right? So far, if you look at this, we have 2 minutes left, and I have to run this up real quick. So far, if you look at this, so if you look at our customers, those new customers we've added, they are here, test user and test user 2. Now, if you look at our posts, we have so many posts belonging to Thomas, right? So that relationship now is now known as what? Many-to-one relationship. And because that is, and how do we actually express that in Django? We use the foreign key keyword, okay? So let's see, let me go ahead and let me go ahead and create another table here, right? Real quick, right? And let's see this one that says profile pictures, right? Profile.
Create it under, sir. Create it under.
Right, under, right? Okay, let's go under, right? Let's go under. Let's see. Right, so let's see. One more. So this one, we have profile, right? Profile. Let us say class. Remember, use class to create a table. I just have to call profile, right? Profile. Remember, it will be models. The what? Dot model from the model class, right? And then within here, we go ahead and say we want. First of all, we want the user, like we want to know who has this profile, right? This profile, right? We want to know who has the profile, because a profile cannot just exist on its own, okay? A user has a profile, and that profile have something like, let's say, your date of birth, your bio data, all this kind of stuff, okay? So I'll just put just one field here, right? So let's just say this field here, time is up, operator. That's my alarm. So let's say this field here will be bow, right? A bow, right? That's your bow, okay? So I'll copy here and paste here real quick. So we see how this thing works, all right? So see how this thing works, okay? All right, so and then now you have to associate this bow to someone, right? Who owns this bow, okay? So now it is impossible for you to have 2 bow, right? It like mean that you cannot have 2 bow. A user is supposed to have only 1 bow, like bow data, okay? Can I have bow data 1 and bow data 2? It's impossible. It must be 1, okay? So in that case, use what? The 1-to-1 relationship. That is 1 bow data to 1 data to 1 user, 1 bow data to 1 user, okay? You can only update, change, but you cannot have more than 1, okay? Just like what happened here, right? Where Thomas have multiple posts, right? right? Both must have multiple posts. So in that case, it is right that we use the many to one there, because Thomas will always want to post as many times as possible. But Thomas cannot have one bar data. Okay, Thomas cannot have one bar data. Okay, so now we have to associate this data to who? To a user, right? So you say that you can say a user, right? This user now is who owns this bar. Okay, who owns this bar here that want to have here, want to associate it to this user. So to associate that, we use is still our models, but then this won't be a char field or an email field or a foreign key field. Okay, it will be a what? A one-to-one field. Okay, one-to-one field. And what do we want to relate with? We want to relate with what? Our customer again, right? Remember, the other one is on delete, meaning that if I delete this customer, no point of his post being in our, or his bar being in our database, right? So on delete, and we say models dot cascade. Okay, model dot cascade, right? So since there's no data of this, that okay, since there's no record of this, okay, there's no record of any bar. Okay, no bar have existed in a database, so no point of us doing the default stuff. No default there. So I'll go ahead and run the migration, make migrations, migrate, and then we run saver. Okay, run saver, and that's that one there. Run saver. So what we can do again is go ahead and register this model. Right, register this model in where our admin. So they're in the same place. So I'll just import them there. So I'll copy this one. Okay, bring it down, they paste it, and then register it. So we see it in our admin page. Okay, so I'll just profile. So I'm registering profile. Okay, so if I come here now and let's refresh this. Oh boy, I think we have a problem. And it says that right, so our server has not yet rebooted, so I'll just bring it down and then bring it back up again. All right, so everything is up and running. So I'll refresh this page. So we have profiles, right? Profile right there. So far, no record is there. Okay, no record is there. But if I make a new record, let's say a new bar, let's say a bar, let's say right, a Python developer, right? Developer. That's a bar about me. Okay, for instance, right? Then after I say this bar needs to belong to someone, right? It needs to belong to someone. He can't just hang there in thin air. Okay, so I could just come here and say, I could just come to our models and add where that user has to do what, put his or her name, username, all kinds of, but there's no point because there's a table that handles that already. So we can just relate with that table. Okay, there's no point of putting all of that thing here in the profile. Okay, no point of saying your username here. Okay, no point of saying username and rest of them, because there's a table that handles that already, which is this. So we have to relate with that table, but want to relate with that table in a one-to-one relationship. Okay, meaning that only one user can have one bar data. Okay, you cannot have more than two. So now I said, so now I come and answer that I want to add a new bar data, right? So now this field is composed, so I can't save this. I have to pick someone someone must have this thing. Okay, someone must have this thing. So I'll just go ahead and pick Thomas here. So I said that Thomas owns that. Okay, and then I save this. So now if I come, okay, still showing that thing again. So let's see how you can let that one show for now, right? Let that one show for now. Right, so now if I come here and make a new bar data, gibberish as data. Now if I try to assign this thing to Thomas again, it now says that there is a profile, right, that already has that user, that there's a user that already has a bar data, right? That Thomas, this thing means that Thomas already has a bar data. Okay, Thomas already has what? A bar data. So we cannot assign it again to Thomas. So that is one-to-one relationship. One record to one record. One record to one record. Unlike foreign key that Thomas has multiple records in the post, but here it's one record is to one. One is to one. Okay, so you have to choose someone else like Polly and then give Polly that bar data. So now what happens here? Let's say something. Let's try to delete something here, right? So now we have a post here that says a post by test user, right? We have a post by test user. Okay, so if I come here and I delete test user, come here, click it, and I click on action and say delete selected customer, and then I click go. It now tells us that we want to delete this customer here, okay? But this customer relates with other things like the post, right? That this customer has a post, just one record, right? He has one record in the post, right? In the post table, okay? So if you are sure you want to delete this, now if we delete this customer, which is gone, and then you come back to post, we do not find that post again. That post is gone as well. So that's that on delete there. If you relate to a table, same thing happens with the one-to-one relationship. So there's a bar here that belongs to poly, right? If I go ahead and delete poly, which is here, poly, but delete this poly here, delete this customer, go, and then I delete. Now it says that poly has 3 posts and 1 what? 3 posts and 1 bio data. Now if I go to post, poly post is gone. All these post lists either belongs to this user, this test user there, or belongs to Thomas. Post, all the posts that belongs to that user is gone as well. Same thing with profile. That profile is gone as well. So you have only one which belongs to Thomas. Okay, so that is that with relationships. Okay, so as for many to many, okay, we'll cover it probably along the correct course, we cannot come back to here. We've done this topic for about these 3 classes. Okay, so you have to move. So for that one record, right, or that particular one relationship, many to many relationship, okay, we'll use it. Okay, I think we will use it when we want to add comments. Okay, so probably when we want to use it, but from the name you can have an idea. So let's say about this here was, let's say here was like a main-to-main relationship. He means that one customer can have many profile, and one profile can belong to many customers. That's just what it means. Okay. So it's unfortunate that I cannot show you that at the pause. We are 8 minutes late, all right? We are 8 minutes above our time. So that is that for today's class. In our next class, we will discuss more about it. Okay. So let me know if there's any question in this relationship thing. Okay. Any question with that? So we got this off. But someone has raised their hand. All right, go ahead.
Hey, sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening.
Okay, my question is that as you create a post, is it possible for you to create it under a user instead of you to create a post and select a user? Is there any way you can just make a post and the author will directly come from a user? That is from a user. So how do you do it?
Okay. Probably when we step in, well, don't worry, I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so that's behind the scene, right? But that what happens when you go on Facebook and then you make a post. Okay, you are being attached automatically, right? So we do that behind the scene. We'll do that probably in is it after our next class, the upper class. We'll see how we do that. Okay, so don't worry, you'll see that. Okay, so but for now, just do that manually. For now, you can do that manually.
Okay.
The thing is that I want you guys to get the concept of how this thing works, and okay, so the concept of relationship, how this thing works. So that's that.
Okay, no problem.
Let's the keyword we use in creating one-to-one
Okay.
is actually different from many to one. In that place, we write under that author. Do we have something like many to one?
No, there's no many to one. Okay, to represent many to one. Okay, many to one is being represented with many to one is being represented using foreign key, right? That in the foreign. So once Django see foreign key, Django knows it's many to one.
What of many to many?
Many to many is being represented with many to many.
Okay.
Many to many, right? So it's just this one that is having a different way of representing it. Foreign key, okay? Any other question about that? All right, so in our next class we'll continue from here, okay? So we see how we can actually do this, right? How you can work on our blog site, I think in our next class. That's if we cover something so much. Okay, I think in our next class we look at how you can create users, right? How users can be created, not from their main page, right? From our views here. Okay, with form. Okay, that means that user will go to our front end here. To our front end, let's say where is our front end that says is it home dash home? Can't remember that URL. Home dash home. I think that should be the right. So you can see how someone can come to register and then I think we're missing something. And I think I didn't link that page. We didn't link this page. Okay, so probably I'll link it later. You can go ahead and link these two pages, sign in and register. We'll do that in our next class. So in the next class, we look at how someone can register from here and then we create a new user. Okay, creation of user. I think that's what we do in the next class. So any other question pertaining to this class, to this class? So in the absence of question, we'll see in our next class. Good night all.
Good night, sir.